This week's episode is brought to you by 2014 Nostalgia. And welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy and I am delighted this week to be joined, and I'm welcoming back our guest resident of the pod. He's a podslut himself, and he is the man behind Stitch Up, Hit 66 Sound and Screen. He's a co-host of the Film Addicts podcast. Is there anything he can't do, ladies and gentlemen? It is Reich.
Hey y'all. Thanks. I'm so glad that Pod Slut is a name that's stuck. That's just what I've wanted my whole life, to have a really cool nickname.
I copied it from my last time you were on the show, and I was going to come up with something a bit more inventive, something a bit more fun, but then I was like, yeah, Pod Slut sounds about right.
Yeah, that's fine.
No shaming here. If that's who you are, man, you live your truth.
I pod around. It's all right. What's going on, mate?
Not a lot, buddy. How have you been? It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, haven't been on since last year. I was off on travels. I'm a windswept and interesting intrepid voyageur now.
You sure are. How was the travels?
Oh, man.
You were in Canada?
I was in Canada, having just covered in maple syrup the whole time.
Delightful.
Maple syrup and snow is what they traffic in.
So you were
over there.
ice hockeying covered in maple syrup.
Exactly. I'll tell you about ice hockey. We went to a couple of games there, and now I'm a fucking slave. I love the shit. It's excellent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because it looks fun.
It's just unhinged. It's like the way that the rules kind of work, it's almost like basketball, like, the way they sort of, guard each other and there's 5 people and the things. I mean, you sort of switch out team members a little bit more often than that. But
right.
Yeah, it's interesting. But also people just sometimes take off their gloves and fucking punch on.
Right. And that's why I'm so intrigued by the sport. It's interesting that it never really made it like over here. Like I know they have some ice hockey over here occasionally, but I'm like, this seems like the country where people would want to just fight each other and be allowed to do it.
Yeah, they just kind of let it happen, and then as soon as you can sort of see them going a bit softer, then as soon as they get serious about it, the guys come and pull them apart. But also, you can't even watch it here. Like, if you've got the streaming service Binge, it comes with an add-on for sports called KO. That you can watch like 3 games a week.
Because KO's expensive.
Yeah, I know, right? And Foxtel, but you can't watch all the games, so there's no guarantee that it's going to be your team.
Well, we've got to the point now where I've decided I need to be more selective about my not just streaming services, but the various things I have on a regular monthly basis. So any SaaS platform, effectively, any monthly payments, and I'm like, I had to get rid of some. I was like, there's too many, and I don't go into all of them, and I want Disney now because Daredevil's coming out soon. Yeah. I was like, if anyone doesn't know, by the way, we're talking about Captain the Winter Soldier. No, Captain the Winter Soldier. Captain Bird Brave Man.
Captain Birdseye is what it is.
What is this movie called? Yes, Captain America, A Brave New Bird. That's what it's called.
Makes fish. He makes boxed frozen fish.
Everybody
seems to enjoy it.
In the UK, this tangent, I'm coming back to my original tangent in a minute. In the UK, there is a fish finger, fish fingers. There's a fish finger brand. And I told you it's a tangent. I warned you. No. We're going all over the place today.
I've just never had anyone go, fish fingers, like as if it's a fucking mobster. That's his nickname. Sorry.
No, listen. There's a fish finger brand, and their mascot forever was an old gentleman called Captain Birdseye.
Yeah.
Right. Now, of course, Birdseye, you get it. So the progression of the adverts in like the late 90s, early 2000s was that he's captaining took him to an island where he was captaining, just creating fish fingers for an island full of kids. Now, you tell me in 2025 if that isn't fucking awkward.
Did he also play the wobble board? Because
his name was actually Captain Jeffrey Epstein Birdseye.
He was on an island. With
a lot of kids. I don't know what's happening here.
With fingers. Let's just
and they're fishy at the end of it. Anyway, we are
left that unsaid.
I can't remember my original. Oh yeah, I got rid of a streaming service this week because I wanted Disney for Daredevil. Effectively, it's just getting too much right now.
Yeah, there's
too many,
so much content. all the time. You've got to be, when you get in your 40s, you have to be real discerning about what you spend your time on, because it could be the end at any minute, you know.
I'm feeling that at the minute. I've had a headache for 4 days. I definitely am feeling that right now.
You're starting to look like the Thinker from the fucking movie with all the bubble head and the greenery, you know? Mercy.
The Thinker? Is that what he's called?
I think that's the name. No, it's not the Thinker. That's someone else.
Leader.
It's like the Leader. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, whatever. I knew what was up.
Close.
Yeah.
Close to the Thinker. Hey, how was your Valentine's Day? Happy Valentine's Day. Will you be my Valentine?
Sure, I would have been good. Emily was working, so I was on my own. I went and saw a retro of Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind.
Very good film. We should put that on our list of films to watch sometime.
Yeah.
I have never actually seen that all the way through. I know it's seen as one of the better good ones.
It's really excellent. It's so well put together, and because Michel Gondry, the director, came from, you know, doing music videos and things like that rather successfully, you know, doing stuff for Bjork and shit. But he's renowned for in-camera effects, in-camera tricks. And this movie is basically a display of what you can do without, you know, a heavy amount of computer-generated effects, and what you can do by using, you know, camera tricks and lighting tricks and you know, strange staging and all that kind of stuff. And it really holds up.
I love that.
And Jim Carrey's performance, like, it's so against type, and he's so muted, but it's such a beautifully heartbroken performance as well. Yeah, I love it. It's a really good film.
I love him when he goes against type predominantly. So like things like, you know, Truman Show, for example.
Yeah.
Perfect example of him going against. But I mean, like, he is his own genre in many ways. I don't like, and I'm pretty sure he aped a lot of comedians from before his time, like the 60s and 50s and such. But for people our generation, he was a genre all on his own.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was the biggest thing in the world after Ace Ventura, and rightly so. The guy is a singular talent. I remember reading when they made The Mask, they saved so much money on computer effects because he was able to distort his body and his face so much.
Wild.
Yeah, he's once in a lifetime talent, that guy, and quite a remarkable human being if you hear him speak now.
Great beard too.
Oh,
absolutely phenomenal beard.
To beat the band, mate. You could fucking nest in that.
I don't know where it came from, but I was like, oh my God, that's such a very good beard. I love that. Guys, if you want to stick around and listen to us chat about our weeks, feel free. There will be time codes in the description, as always, supplied by friend of the show and editing genius, Mr. Matthew Bliss of mbpod.com. While you're there, I'm going to put Regs's, or Matt will, thank you, Matt, we appreciate you. We're going to put Regs's details down there so you can find him wherever you look. Regs, where can our lovely listeners find you?
My address is and my bank account number is this. No, you can find me at Hit 66 Sound and Screen, which is my company where I do fun things with cameras and lights. We also have a studio on the peninsula in Melbourne called Cable Sound Studios, where we do fun things with instruments and sound. I'm also on my own pod, which is called the Film Addicts Podcast, that I do with my buddy Addy, and we've got an episode coming out this week on the very underrated and underseen film from 2024, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I watched that somewhat recently. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And Addy really dug it, and we were going to do Seven, and I didn't have a chance to rewatch it before we were supposed to record. So
Seven, I like that film.
Yeah, it's doing the rounds at the cinema in Melbourne at the moment because they've done a big 4K re-release.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
fabulous.
Cool.
Well, I'm excited to hear both of those things. I will be checking those out, and I'll also be giving you likes and 5-star reviews, as our lovely listeners should do. If you haven't already done so, please give us a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice you are currently on. Give Regs likes. I know his YouTube stuff pops off. So if you could give us both likes and much love, helps with algorithms stuff. I know I don't understand. Do you understand algorithms?
Nothing. It's not even a joke at this point. I really don't get it.
Should you?
Yeah. No.
Dude, what have you been up to? What's been happening?
This week, like I was talking to you off mic, I shot a music video yesterday.
Woof.
That we've been planning for months.
You're like Zack Snyder in waiting.
Yeah, well, I am my own director and own camera operator, so yes. But actually, no, someone else was directing it. My camera assistant, my normal camera assistant, Alex, was directing it. And she had just prepped the shit out of this. There'd been months on it, storyboards, shot lists, props, extras, the whole thing.
Good to go.
Yeah, ready to go. And it was supposed to be like a mock pool party where a band turns up, everyone's really bored, they start playing, and then, you know, everybody gets up and starts dancing and has a great time with the band. And, you know, kind of ripping off those kind of 90s
I love those.
Punk pop clips. Yeah. So we planned it. We planned it for months and months and months. And I said, let's not shoot it into the end of January. It'll be cooler in February. Well, how much cooler do you think it was? Because fuck my hole. There was, I can only describe the downpour as Jumanji-like proportions. It was ridiculous.
Biblical.
Yeah, it was raining every few minutes. We were having to wrap the gear and, cut camera. We had, a dozen gorgeous people in bikinis and bathing suits as these extras, and they had to, you could see the goosebumps in the 4K on their arms. It was just a nightmare. But Alex did a really great job. The band really good. All the extras, did it. We got our shots off. We had to, eventually I put the camera on my shoulder and exposed for natural light, and we just started getting shots and not doing setups. We were just let's just get stuff. And in the end, it was that energy, I think, fed into the day, and everyone had a really good time.
I personally often get exposed and get my shots off to music videos, so I like all those things.
Come on. Man, you weaved quite a web in that one.
You put the tapestry in front of me. I just completed it for you. You were one step away from perfection. It was beautiful. Oh, that sounds awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun, except for all the water.
It was great. Yeah, apart from the monsoon, and we all had to fucking go home in canoes. It was great.
That's awesome. I love that. What's the band? Are you allowed to tell us, or are you not allowed to tell us?
Yeah, the band's called Icky Sitch. They're from it's ICKYSITCH, and they're a young group of guys from the peninsula, 22, 23, 24 kind of years old.
Nice.
Super talented. It's kind of like,
what's the genre?
Surfy. It's a little bit sort of surfy music, actually. Yeah, we've done a few clips of them before, and they've recorded our studio. They're one of our artists. Al just pitched this idea to them last year, and they bought it in the room, and so we went and put it together. But yeah, we were not expecting
the idea of getting rained on.
Yeah, we weren't expecting the end of fucking Gods and Kings
Days.
Or some shit.
Russell Crowe turned up with a massive boat, and you were like, "What are you doing here, Russell Crowe?"
Yeah, and stay away from the buffet, mate. Christ, he's a big man.
I've been doing a couple of fun things this week. We haven't had a lot of time actually. The partner together this week, but we sat down to watch a couple of things. I watched one on my own. I'll talk about. Have you seen the movie Tag with Ed Helms, John Hamm, Jake Johnson, Isla Fisher, Hannibal Buress, Jeremy Renner?
Yes,
I had a lot of fun watching that movie with
the
partner. We kind of picked it up. It was one of those things where I was like, I want a comedy. I'm not in the mood for anything dark. She's been watching some weird dark stuff recently. I was like, I need to step away. I need to step away from this. Too many dark things. Sure. Too many things which involve rape on TV at the moment. I'm like, I don't need any of this.
No.
I just want to laugh at Jeremy Renner.
Yep.
Which I do quite a lot, to be fair. It was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I think that's a great picture. Just a proper big box comedy that they don't really make anymore.
Right. Lots of stars. That's a great cast, by the way, right there. Jake Johnson, absolute favorite of mine. Hannibal Buress, low-key hilarious. I've seen him live many, 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 many years ago in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Wow.
Darling. We were at the Fringe, and it was fabulous. And he is a very funny man. But, it's dry and sarcastic, basically, as I am. Probably more so, I would say. His wit is kind of slow burn, but I absolutely love that about him. But yeah, as an ensemble, they really work well together.
Yeah, man. And I don't know, I really like Jeremy Renner. I think he's a solid actor. He's certainly out of the Avengers cast of, those core films. He's, apart from RDJ, he's probably the most talented actor. He was in a great film a few years ago. It must have been 2017 or something, called Kill the Messenger, which was about a true story about a journalist who sort of blew the lid on the American government, funding Contras and getting drugs kind of sent into the country, in the US. And it's remarkably good performance. So yeah, I don't know. I dig him.
I'll tell you what, and this is my take on him. And you can take this however you want. I think he is and the perfect example of this is how he was primed to be taking over from Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, but just didn't quite make it. So, I think he is, like you say, a very good actor. He is clearly very, very charismatic. He's a good-looking guy, but I don't think he's quite good-looking enough to be the main star. Do you know what I mean? I think there's just something that isn't quite. And I think a lot of I don't know, studios look at him and go he is a perfect secondary character. He is the guy you stand next to the guy who's perfect looking and go, oh yeah, that
makes sense. Yeah, like in SWAT, where he's standing next to Colin Farrell, and you're like, yeah,
perfect example. Perfect example. Who's the guy in Top Gun Maverick? What's his name? I always forget his name. Who's in Twisters?
Glenn Powell.
God, why do I always forget his name?
Yeah.
Glenn Powell. He would be stood next to Glenn Powell. And I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, he's the one that makes the other guy, you go like, Jeremy Renner is a fantastic looking bloke. Wow. And you stand him next to Glenn Powell and go, oh, wow. If he's this good looking, wow, he's really good looking. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, now that you say that, actually, you know, being that Glenn Powell has already been in a film that was, you know, led by Tom Cruise, but was still, you know, sort of like a new update of a Tom Cruise film, you could do a new Rain Man with Glenn Powell as the Tom Cruise role and Jeremy Renner in the Dustin Hoffman role. Yeah, no, I don't think you get away with that at the moment. The trailer for The Accountant 2 just came out. Now, I don't know if you've seen The Accountant, but it's a baller-ass film.
Right.
In which Ben Affleck plays a hitman who's high-functioning autistic. And people didn't have a huge problem with it then, as far as I understand, or maybe they did, I don't know. But I liked the movie. But it's 2025, it's very different times. You can't have what is it, like a neuronormal person or a neurotypical person play someone with and I'm just like, hang on a minute. And so I don't think they're going to remake Rain Man with Jeremy Renner is the point.
Well, I think it would be.
And Glenn Powell's got all the charisma that he needs to take over for the Tom Cruise role.
That's like something Avi Arad would pitch to Marvel. They'd be like, you know what we need to do? We need to bring in this character.
No, Avi Arad, he sound like this. Avi Arad, he said,
that's right.
You look.
I don't know why he sounded like.
And you look at the drunks. If you love what we do, you do what we do. You know, hang on, let me tell these hoys. Like he's just. Sounds like he's got a bottle of, limoncello in his pocket all the time.
Oh, he absolutely does. And he also works in your local Greek restaurant. You didn't know that, but he does. Everyone's local Greek restaurant, apparently.
I got a back of the bar.
Tag, I highly recommend. Go.
Sorry, I love that word.
I'm not sure where his accent's going with this, but it's terrible. Go away and check out Tag. It's very funny. I know you've seen it, but if the people out there haven't seen it, go and do it. Oh, and what else have you been up to, buddy?
I've actually been reading a lot since I got back. While I was away, I listened to a podcast. Was an interview.
Nerd.
That was a setup. That was a
only nerds
sting.
read. Bitch.
Booby trapped me. You don't know this, folks, but just off mic, he goes, "What have you been up to? Reading anything? Like any books or anything?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have actually." He fucking set me up. That was a stitch up.
Hey, I gave you TV shows, I gave you movies, and you went straight to books. I was like, fucking nerd.
Here I am trying to just, advance my knowledge here and build my vocabulary, and you're just sitting over there being a prick.
I love it. I love books. Give me a good book. Tell me everything.
Right. Anyway.
I'm also a nerd. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm very well and truly in that camp with you.
Yeah, but you're one of those hot nerds, like the guy, the really smart guy from Criminal Minds. It's like, yeah, I mean, he could probably recite Faust for you, but he'd also eat it like it owes him money.
Stop it! You're making me blush. My favorite thing is, you'll appreciate this. So friends of the show, Kyle, who we talk about a fair amount. He's great. He often sends us interesting tidbits, stuff off the internet, memes. I love when our friends of the show send us memes. He is a good friend of DL's and now a good friend of mine. I met him at Dre's wedding. We hung out a lot. He was staying in the same hotel we were. And me and Kyle had a great banter about the silly things we talk about. We were chatting away and lots of different things. And my partner made the exact same joke. She was like, "You're both nerds, but you're kind of, hot nerds." And I was like, we could be herds. But I was like, but what if we're cool hot nerds? So now we're churds, which sounds terrible.
Or curds.
A churd sounds like something you shit out after you've had a big night on Guinness. You're like, oh, it's time to get the churd out.
The after Guinness churd. The ubiquitous after Guinness churd. Yeah, I think
he is the cool hot nerd. Friend of the show, Kyle, we love you. You're a churd for sure.
Yeah,
in the good sense, not the Guinness shit sense.
Yeah, no, I understood what you meant. I kind of have to agree though, because I saw a picture on IG or Instagram or whatever the cool kids call it of DL, and his partner. Holy shit, man! They're
a power couple.
They make Brad and Angelina look like fucking chuds.
like churds.
Yeah, cannibalistic underground humanoid dwellers or whatever they're fucking doing. No,
of course.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. And outrageous. So yeah, you are a hot pod.
They're beautiful people. They are beautiful people. Much love to them. DL is actually traveling this week for work, hence why you can't be here. Much love to you, my friend. You will be back soon enough. Unfortunately, I think he's trying his best to skip the MCU ones these days. I think he's fallen out of love with anything MCU. So he's like, I'll go away for work that week.
Well, I mean, to have had this on brand for the film that we're talking about, you probably should have got someone in, like a guest who was black, because I am not.
I don't see color, Regs, so you could be anything
I
and I wouldn't
doctor.
even know.
What are you, a dog?
Sorry, you were saying about a book. Let's bring this back.
Was
Come
I?
on. Bring it right back. You were talking about a book, you churd.
Oh, God. So while I was overseas, hiking a lot in the Canadian wilderness, I was listening to music and podcasts and things like that. This
sounds a lot like that Friends setup where Joey's like, I was hiking a little outside of Barcelona and I came across this beautiful...
It's no, because I did mine.
Is that what
and then it hasn't got me laid at all. So I was...
Oh, shame.
I was on a mountain. No, I was just walking around this town called Golden, and I was listening to a podcast which was basically just an interview with Shane Black, the...
Okay, yeah. Fabulous director, Iron Man 3.
Yeah. And he was talking about some of his screenplays, some of which I've read, and he's got a very lyrical sort of light touch, and there's some funny stuff in there and whatever. The character went to bed, and you should too, like that kind of thing. And
that sounds just like something Shane Black would write.
Yeah, right. And it's just fun, and it makes it enjoyable to read. I know that Hollywood's a little bit more pragmatic than that these days, but he certainly still writes that way, and I liked it. And he said it's because he's read 3 novels a week his entire life. He's read thousands of books. And I just thought to myself, I haven't read a book. Like, I've read biographies and stuff and listened to audiobooks, but I haven't read a book in a really long time. I read a lot of comics. And so when I got home, I thought, I'm just going to start going through the books that I have and just smash them out. So since I got back in the middle of January, I've read 4 books. And they are the first 4 books in 8-book series that the TV show Dexter is based on.
Ah,
yeah. And the first one is probably the closest to an adaptation for that first season. Is basically the first book, apart from a few characters changing here and there. And the rest of them are completely different. They have almost nothing. None of the other seasons correlate so far in these, the following 3 books. The one that I'm reading now, he's currently in Havana, chasing someone who's trying to kill his stepchildren. Like they're really good. They're really well written. It's all in first person, so it's actually
Matt,
Dexter.
Can you just please put in that song, that Havana, na na na, my heart and soul is in. I hate that fucking song. Sorry, carry on. I just I had to interrupt.
Don't do that, Matt. Actually, just leave Tommy doing it poorly. That's much funnier.
Havana, na na na. Song.
I got
stories about everything. I got a story about that fucking song too. Finish your story, please. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Oh no, that's fine. I kind of that was the story really. It's just they're really good books.
That.
Yeah, they're sort of written in the first person, and you're kind of in his head, and he's far more like in the show. He's kind of humanized a lot, and as the series goes on, he has children and kind of develops feelings and emotions, but he's actually a sociopath. He can't have those feelings and stuff. So it's interesting to kind of develop the character in my head a bit more than I remember from the screen, because I hadn't read them before, obviously.
If Shane Black reads 3 books a day, how does he do any writing or directing?
A week, not a day.
Oh, okay. All right. A day would be pretty fucking difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. He's got it's like an audio book on. He's reading one. Yeah. And then he's reading Braille with his hand on the right-hand side as well. Like that's the only way you could physically do that.
That's the only way you'd be able to do it. There's not No.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So do you did they become comics, or did they just remain as books?
So to become TV shows, or?
Sorry, the books you're reading, did they also do comics, or was it obviously became Dexter?
I don't know, actually. Yeah, probably. It sounds like something they would do. The only other thing that I'm reading at the moment, I'm rereading Grant Morrison, the UK writer's run on Green Lantern, and it's fucking
nice,
outrageous, man. It's an acid trip. I love it.
Who was the guy, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but who's the guy who did The Sandman? Did you hear he got cancelled recently? Apparently he's a terrible guy.
Neil Gaiman, yeah, dipping the wheel in all places. Yeah, that's not cool.
Not a good bloke. We stay away from his comics these days.
Yeah, well, that's the thing though, because Sandman's like one of the best graphic novel series of all time.
Annoyingly so, right. Yeah. And the TV show wasn't bad. I liked it. The guy was a bit ethereal for me, but I like the series.
It was like fucking you, dude.
Whoa! How could you say
like
something
you
so true and so
mushrooms or
mean?
Something like that?
That is me on mushrooms. Or today I am. Do you recommend the book series? Do you like it?
Yeah, I really dig it. This third one's probably the best I've read at the moment. The one I'm reading at the moment's a little contrived, but I'm excited. There's one where he eventually ends up in prison, which will be fun to read. I don't know how the circumstances under which that happens, but it's on the back of the book. So
okay,
yeah,
that's awesome. I also love books. Being a churd, I tried really hard to get into a different book recently, but the book series that me and Dre always talk about, the Red Rising book series, there are 3 of them right now which I haven't read, and I'm just like. I'm getting I was trying really hard to get into this book, and I'm like, I can't do it. I need to finish this series off. I need to do it. I need to finish it. So I've put the other book down for now, and I'm going to move back to that because you just got to do these things sometimes. I watched a thing this week that I think you would enjoy.
Okay,
very much enjoy. So, do you ever get an opportunity to watch any animated TV shows and the like?
Oh, sometimes, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, there is a current one. It came out. I actually watched this over Christmas, actually. It was directed and created by Zack Snyder, who you probably know and have some variation of liking for, depending on where you stand on those movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Twilight of the Gods.
Yeah,
it's
right.
The Gods, but I like to put that accent on it because I'm an idiot. And it's interesting. It's quite fun. It's a weird take on Norse mythology with this. It's got a lot of parallels to a lot of different things. There's obviously Thor, who's kind of the bad guy in it. There's Loki in it. There is a female lead whose whole family get massacred by Thor.
Christ.
She goes on a revenge trip, and it's interesting. It's like I say, it's animated, so they get away with a lot more in terms of like people getting like ripped in half and stuff like that. So it's good. It's interesting. I liked what they were going for. She was good. Like, it was good. I feel like as a lead, she was pretty strong. Some of her like choices through the show are very Zack Snyder, as in it's more about the stylistics of something looking cool than it actually making sense for the character to do them.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fine. It's a Zack Snyder show. What more do you expect? But I enjoyed it. I love. As I said, Greek mythology. I meant Norse. I always do that. Norse mythology. I love Norse mythology. It's top 3 mythologies for me. It's up there. I love it a lot. It's very, very fun. Thor is such a fabulous character. He's just so diverse. You can do so much with him. Loki's so interesting. All the other gods around that too. You know, there's like, it dives into things like the petty squabbles of the different gods and how, you know, maybe Zeus's wife, is it Hela? No, not Hela. What's Zeus's wife called? I've forgotten her name. Maybe Zeus's wife maybe didn't actually love him. Maybe there's reasons why she didn't love him and all this stuff. And it's good. It dives into a bit deeper mythology than the likes of like the MCU might or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's got some like interesting themes to it.
That sounds good. That sounds really good. Zach's funny because he's so, sometimes he's style over substance and sometimes he's substance over style. But it reminds me of the Walt Whitman quote, like, do I contradict myself? Yes, I contradict myself. I am large and contain multitudes. You know, like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there is a lot going on there. It's interesting because it's got a vibe of, I don't know if you've seen any of the Castlevania stuff that's on Netflix right now. It's a Netflix show. It's got a vibe of like a lot of that Castlevania stuff that's quite, there is plenty of good animation going on, but at times they'll slow it down and it's quite simple so that you can get a lot of dialogue in. And you'll break the episode up so it's not just constantly going with like tons of action and stuff like that. So it's good. It's interesting. I'd recommend if you like animated stuff, if you like Zack Snyder, this is the crossover for you, man. This is your Venn diagram right here. Yeah. I kind of liked it. I enjoyed it. I nearly dropped off halfway, but then it picked up and I was like, okay, I got this. I'm down for this.
Excellent. Right, you hear that, Netflix? Let's throw us some cash.
Give it of course, we will always sell out immediately as soon as anyone wants to give us cash. Guys, if there's anything we haven't talked about that you recommend, please hit us up. You can find us at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. Send us memes, send us news, send us reviews. Things we love. Mate, Regs, you're back.
Yes.
Do you want to preface our main topic this week?
It's the main topic theme.
I do. It's Captain Birdseye. Brave new fingers, and he's returned to finger everybody.
He's back
with crumbs. No, it's Captain America.
Imagine getting crumbs in all those holes.
I know, that's like sand. Once you get it in there, it can't get it out.
That makes me cringe. I feel sick.
Hey, you feel sick? I'm a vegan. I don't want fish any hole. Thank you very much. But But no, what are we talking about again? I don't know. Some movie.
Captain Birdman and the Brave New America. I don't know, whatever the fuck it's called. We're going to do non-spoilers and then a bit of spoilers at the end. There isn't like a huge amount of spoiling this that wasn't already in the trailer, I suppose.
Yeah.
But do you want to give me your stupid plot summary for this?
Cool. Yes, I have 2 because they're both short.
You always do 2.
I know. Well, I can't help it. If you let me, I'd do 8. I just the voices don't stop in here. Once you give me a task, I'm on task. All right. As old enemies return and new ones emerge, Falcap, Sam Wilson, faces his greatest battle yet: Reshoots. And the second one is POTUS.
I like that a lot.
President of the United States, is a big, red, angry monster, and they've made a new Captain America film.
I like them both a lot. Good work, my friend.
You're welcome.
Mine is Captain America uncovers a deep-rooted political conspiracy within the government where hidden enemies have infiltrated a powerful organization. As he investigates, he faces formidable brainwashed super soldiers from his past, and he must battle both external threats and internal corruption to prevent a catastrophic plan from being executed. This is Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Wait, what are we talking about again?
I could feel it growing. Like,
it was. You're going to hear a lot about that from us throughout this podcast. This movie is brought to us by Julius Anoa. I hope I'm saying that right. Apologies if I'm not. Who you would probably know from the likes of the Cloverfield Paradox, and he's done a bunch of other stuff. I've never seen Cloverfield Paradox. I heard bad reviews when it came out and kind of steered clear of it. 'Cause I genuinely really like the first Cloverfield, but I felt like everything else that's come out in that universe since has been another script where they've just thrown the monster in at the end and gone, oh, Cloverfield. Well, actually, what was the one where they were in the basement? That was a good one.
10 Cloverfield Lane. They're not supposed to be connected at all. They're just the name that they share, but they're different stories, is my understanding.
Right. They're all different stories, but they're on that same universe. And I think I would bet you $1 trillion, and the word trillion is going to come up a lot in this podcast, bet you $1 trillion that if they'd all been good and they'd all worked, they would have found a way to bring all of the stories together at some point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't think they're going to get the opportunity now, but yeah.
Well, absolutely not. Well, anyway, so this is, of course, it's bringing back some old favorites. It's got a couple of new folks and a couple of folks who you might not have seen for maybe 18 years. So we've got Anthony Mackie, who is Captain America, obviously. Harrison Ford, who is here for now President Thaddeus Ross, taking over from William Hurt, R.I.P. Daniel Ramirez as Joaquin Torres. We're going to talk about him. Carl Lumbly comes back as Isaiah Bradley, who you will know if you've watched the Captain America and the Winter Soldier. What is it? Falcon the Winter Soldier? Captain America and the Winter Soldier?
It's
whatever the TV show is called.
And the Winter Soldier. There's
a lot of those. Okay, so we've got Tim Blake Nelson returning to Samuel Stearns. We'll talk about him in a moment. And Giancarlo Esposito, a Sidewinder. I love him, by the way. He's great.
He's excellent.
Massively underutilized. We're going to talk about this. What happens in this movie, Regs? What's the big picture here?
Well, it's the country has kind of moved on. We're post-blip, and
we've been post-blip for 10 years. God damn it!
But this one feels like they're really trying to go. Okay, remember all that stuff? Don't
from 18 years ago.
And we're gonna. This is the thing. This is where we're coming from.
We're still doing it. We're still doing it.
Yeah, we're still doing it. But this probably has more to do with like the stuff that they've made post blip, obviously,
right?
Eternals and whatnot, but also harkens all the way back to Incredible Hulk.
Harkens, love that word for you.
You're welcome. And yeah, so we've got Captain America now. Is Sam Wilson, and he's just a man. He's not a super soldier, and I think that's kind of we were talking about before. That's kind of what the film's about. It's kind of about
he's just a boy looking at a girl, asking her to be his Red Hulk
to open his
wings. You're right. I mean, this got a lot of comic based stuff. There's a lot of things they've pulled. I mentioned Isaiah Bradley. He's in this. It's okay. I'm conflicted because I came out of this movie and went, I actually really enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun. It did a lot of stuff I dig. But it's getting a ton of hate. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like the more the derivative nature of this, and not derivative from the comics, that's obvious, that was always going to be there, derivative of the material it came from, the rest of the MCU gets deeper in me and it's clawing its way at me, and I'm like, oh, it really annoys me. You mentioned when we were talking silly about this at the very top of the show that this was cut to shreds. Or did you say that, or did I say that, or did neither of us say that? This has been cut to shreds in editing. Yeah. You can 100% see that, and this went through multiple reshoots and multiple changes thematically and tonally. I just really want to see what the original cut of this looked like. What was so bad about this that they had to just chop it to pieces?
It's one of those things where I'd love to read the original script, like the first draft of the script, and see just how much, because there's so many writers on it, so many people came in and out, and Johnny, the guy who writes the music for the Film Addicts podcast, he wrote a review of it, and he was saying you can feel where they are. It's called Spot the Cut, like
right,
right. That whole scene at the end with Tim Blake Nelson, you can see that it was shot on a green screen. And it's just plugged in to give more motivation to what ends up happening to Thaddeus, But it was already there. Like, it's just everything seems to be like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. Like, I really don't.
Look, I'm gonna say this up top, right? I came out of this film. I had a lot of fun with this film. I enjoyed it while I was there. It is effectively Captain America War Games. The plot is a little recycled. I've used the word derivative already. We're going to be talking about that. It's kind of held together by a lot of strongish performances. We're gonna talk about a lot of this, but I think one thing that's interesting to me is that they tried to really de-escalate the stakes for the first time in the MCU. And one thing I've been harking on about is that they really, 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 really need to de-escalate. Not every film they make needs to be world-ending. Not every TV show they make needs to be the end of the universe. And I really like that they tried that. The thing that really got me though and made it really difficult throughout the whole of this is, you've all seen the Red Hulk in the trailers. It tries to mash together this grounded spy thriller, Captain America Winter Soldier vibe with the Incredible Hulk and the Eternals. And tonally, they don't work together. Like 2/3 of this is great. I was happy with 2/3 of it. And then the Hulk came at the end and I was like, I get it. This is a fun Marvel universe, but like, what? Like, you've just changed the whole vision of the movie. What's happening?
Yeah, that's a middle movie. Like, that's a end of the second act fight where Cap loses and is injured and then has to, pull himself out of the Dark Night of the Soul. That's how 3-act structure writing works. And you do that by having the denouement or the final conflict be on that fucking island.
When you talk French, it just gets me, man. It just gets me immediately. Oof.
Every time I do that accent, Emily's like, you sound like Bon Voyage from...
Yeah, you do. You sound terrible, but it gets me every time. But you're right. Like, there's a lack of something in the writing of this that lets everyone down. I think they kept the quippiness to a minimum, which I thoroughly enjoyed. There was an earnestness to a lot of the performances that I liked. Like, even if they were pulling from the show they did and bringing back themes that we've seen already, or everyone seemed to be in this. And like, I am not the biggest fan of old mate Anthony Mackie. I've talked about this plenty of times on the pod. Like, I think he's a bit smarmy. There's something about him that really pisses me off, but his earnestness in this, the fact that he goes on this journey of he's just a dude trying to live in the giant clown shoes of a man who is bigger than a hero, who is a superhero. That's interesting to me. But they had to go that one step further and be like, all right, now he's got to fight the Hulk. This dude who clearly can't fight the Hulk has to now fight. You know what I mean? I'm like, it took me out of it, man. And I don't know what it is. Actually, you know what it is? I realized this when we were watching the film. Anthony Mackie, I'm not one for making fun of people's appearance. He's a very good looking dude. He is, he's jacked, great shape. His chin and mouth are too small for his face. I'm just going to say... I'm saying it right now. You will notice it the minute you see it. There are certain angles. When they do a low angle of his face, you'll notice he has that little beard and goatee number 100% to cover up the fact that his chin and mouth are too small for his face.
Okay.
Just saying.
What a weird biological field note you've just given about seeing this movie. Should we talk about the actual movie instead of his
please
small
go for that.
Yeah.
I can't have anything else.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything that you've said there. They do try to kind of shove that in with the, as one particular scene with a character where he's talking about legacy and living up to Cap, and how the Thaddeus even says to him, "You're not Steve Ross. You're not Steve Rogers," and he's like, "No,
you're not Steve Ross.
You're not. Steve
You're not Bob Ross.
Yeah,
you're not painting in the background.
Not Bob Ross."
That would be a funnier film. He's like, "But I want to be."
I think people would have a bigger problem with them replacing a white I know they said Pete Ross again. What's his name? Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
A white Bob Ross with a black Bob Ross, and they do Captain America. But I also like that, he's sort of Captain America, everyone knows, and he gets free drinks for it.
Yes. But like, they're the little touch. And like, okay, right. So if we take it back to like the bigger themes and tonal like points of this movie, like he is a Captain America of the people. Steve Rogers, as much as he was a leader and as much as he was like of the people, this guy, this version of Captain America is a man of the people. That's what he is. And they lent into that really nicely for, a third half of this film, which works. And it works for him. And there's a thing about this that we'll talk about when we talk more about action, which is his action's slower than the Steve Rogers version. And I fucking love that. It works for this character because he is slower. He is not full of the super soldier serum. There's a great scene in this where they talk about it. And it feels a little clunkier, but like that's good because that is who he is and it makes sense for his character. But then when it's like, I guess he's just wearing Wakandan shit and beating up the Hulk, I'm like, that there's a disconnect.
It doesn't matter. Like if he is, the Wakanda stuff's one thing, but when he's fighting that mercenary in the first, like, the opening kind of gambit there.
The big dude.
Yeah, and he cracks a couple of ribs. Okay, so he cracks a couple of ribs fighting this big human. And then when he fights the Hulk hits him once and charges up his Wakandan wings so much it blows up half the White House. Like I don't need logic in these movies.
Of course.
But they need to, if you set something up that he is vulnerable, you need to also contend with the fact that he is vulnerable later on as well.
Totally. And there's a thing as well, and if you think about it, and like I'm notorious for nitpicking this type of shit, but like if you think about a car, if a car is just solid and takes the impact, like if the Hulk punched him even in that armor, and even though it took the I don't know, all the force of it,
inertia,
he is still inside that. He's still going to be pushed back into the back of the goddamn armor. He's a fucking pancake in there, man. He's a pancake.
Yeah. He is flat in America. When they find him after the fight and they lift rubble off him, I'm like, have you ever been underneath concrete? It's really really heavy. Like
it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's a good sequence. The fight's really good, but again, it's just in the wrong place. It's in the wrong place of the film, and I think that's probably was the case. And they realized this ending doesn't work because people just want to come here to see the new costume, and this time it happens to be giant and red skinned.
I mean, you're somewhat right, I'd say. But I don't even know how they would change this around to make it better. But you're talking about the Red Hulk a fair amount. Like, this movie would be a trillion times better. Back to trillion, I told you I'd bring back to it. This would be a trillion times better if the Hulk twist was a secret. It was in the first fucking trailer. Like, if you keep that a secret, I know a lot of people who know the comics would know that, this version of General President Ross would eventually become that. And they've been hinting at it for a long time. It's been like people have been thinking that happened in the MCU for forever, effectively. But like, if that wasn't in every trailer and it wasn't the main marketing tool, that would have been so much more impactful to me.
Yeah, it's the same as when Ragnarok came out and you saw Hulk in the trailer from that. Like, well, that would have been much cooler if he just turned up and we were as surprised as Thor was.
Right.
But I think the way that you adjust it is that you have that fight with Thaddeus as Red Hulk happen in the middle of the picture. Like I said,
interesting.
And then he does end up at the raft, so he's that's the end of him until you see him at the end. And whoever his second was, whoever the vice president was, is corrupt and is working with what's his name?
Leader Samuel Stearns,
the leader, and he instigates the shit that happens between the American and Japanese fleets near.
That's a huge part of this film,
near the island, and that huge dogfight, which is excellent, is what ends the film. That's the final action sequence.
It's really interesting you say that because apparently the runtime of this movie got chopped down significantly before it came out. So
it's like $1.40 or something.
Was. Right, and it's pretty sharp, this film. So I wonder if they did a lot of like the moving around as well, because the fight between, and don't get me wrong, we'll talk about this more when we get spoilers and stuff, but the fight between the Red Hulk and Captain America, it's short, and like I don't, and I'm not saying that in any bad way. Like, I quite like that it was short, and I also like that it wasn't world ending and all that crap, but it was pretty swift. Like, it was, maybe that was Harrison Ford didn't want to do the mocap for it for too long. But it was over pretty short, so in pretty short order. So I wonder if they chopped around the running of this because maybe they thought that final dogfight in the ocean wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's something has been added. One of those two things came after the fact, like they had a script and then they're like, we need more action in the center or whatever. Like, these things are filmed by committee. They're built. They're not created. They are, you're talking about algorithms and things like that before that we don't understand. They fucking understand them. Well, maybe they don't because these things aren't working, but I think it's just because we're all getting tired of them, honestly.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, you can think about this logistically, right? The point of Marvel moving away from our favorite Avi Arad, who we were talking about before, is because there was a vision to it. There was this goal. There was a thought process from Kevin Feige and his team around creating unique movies within this universe that all had a different feel to them. We've talked about this feeling like that espionage style of the Winter Soldier type movie. They all had that. They had something unique to them. Whereas it's almost gone back to what it was before, but worse. Because before it was all about it was by a committee, and they would send the scripts off to the likes of Avi Arad and a bunch of others, and they'd be like, well, Thor's hammer should be bigger, and it's like that's not helping the film. That's not helping the story.
Yeah.
Whereas this feels like it's gone back to that. There's too many cooks in the kitchen.
That's exactly what I made a note before, and it's, I just don't think they can come back from here. I think COVID fucked them. It fucked up the rhythm of these movies. The whole Jonathan Majors thing and having to reset the Kang stuff is you can feel it, and they're scrambling trying to figure it out, and they're like, well, let's just kind of finish this multiverse stuff and introduce, the X-Men at some point and all that stuff, and just kind of hope everybody forgets about it, but we don't, because the continuity worked so well before. And maybe it's me, but I just don't care like I used to. Like, spectacle wise, it's all been done.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, because it doesn't feel like it's about telling stories anymore. It feels like it's about continuing this because at all costs.
Cause money.
Yeah.
Money.
Cash.
I'm with you on that. I feel like there's a great opportunity for them to just reset the universe after what's the two Avengers movies they're doing, Doomsday and something else.
You're going to spend $1 billion to redo this thing? Like, that's fucking crazy. Maybe just leave it alone for a while.
I think they'll just reboot. They'll keep the things that are working. They'll be like, let's say hypothetically the Fantastic Four movie's awesome. They'll go, that's good. We'll keep that. They'll go, I don't know. Who else is good? Thor's still good if he still wants to make the movies. We'll keep Chris Hemsworth as Thor. And then everyone else will just recast. They'll be like, let's find a new Ernest Captain America. Let's find a new... You know what I mean? Like, they'll just do what they do in the comics. And that is so comic book.
Yeah. And I understand that, but comic books are monthly serialized, continuities that span a bunch of books. If you want to read Spider-Man, you read Spider-Man. If you X-Men, you X-Men, you Cap, whatever. But if you're talking about doing that, like about an entire universe of characters within one particular movie every 2 a year, because we've got Thunderbolts this year as well.
We've got Fantastic Four as well. This is going to be a big MCU year.
Fucking crazy. That's back to the old days.
But this has all been backed up from COVID. That's the problem. So these are all things that should have come out. And then the writer strike didn't help either. So COVID and the writer strike.
True.
So there's things that, I mean, there's reasons. Like, I completely understand. Like, last year we only got one. Right, like it felt like more because there was 25 Sony Spider-Man movies, whatever the fuck they're called. So it felt like more, but it weren't. So realistically, you would have got 2 last year and maybe 2 or 3 this year. So like, if they slow it down, give us 1 or 2 real good stories, I'm fine with that. I think the Fantastic Four. I'm genuinely really excited for Thunderbolts. I've just got a good feeling about it. I think it's going to be a fun story. It's going to be different. But the Fantastic Four movie, they get that right. There's your foundation for the whole start of a whole new universe. Like, you just build from there.
Yeah, if you can crack that, and if you can crack the X-Men, then they're on to something new, and they can move past all this stuff.
Right. You've got 2 of the biggest families, quotation marks, teams in Marvel history. So you just build from there, and you don't need to do a Captain America for a while. You don't need to do an Iron Man for a while. You bring them in when they're right.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to do another Cap after this. Like, Anthony Mackie will get his
He's got a 10-year contract or some shit, so.
But that'll be the next 2 pictures, for whatever, and then cameos.
True.
Like, it's not going to be another. There's not going to be Captain America: Brave New World 2.
No, and I think that's unfortunate, because he's like I say, he's charismatic. He isn't my favorite. I don't love him. He's been in a lot of stuff, like a lot of TV stuff interesting. I was just thinking the other day about a TV show called Altered Carbon that I watched a long time ago. I don't know if you watched that on Netflix.
I didn't watch it, but I'm familiar with it.
Right, so the first season was great. I really liked the first season, but it didn't get great reviews. It had the guy who was in the first Suicide Squad movie, who followed over to the second one, the main guy who's Rick Flag.
Joel Kinnaman.
I really liked him, even though he was a little bit dry in it. It was a bit like, I don't know, he wasn't fantastic, but the story and the world, it was this Blade Runner-esque series. I think it's a set of comic books, actually. It's this Blade Runner-esque series.
Yeah.
That's right. And it had, like, there's a resistance, there's all the rich elites, blah, blah, blah. Great concept. And then the second season, because the whole point of it is you can wear anyone's skin, you can take your memories out and put them in someone else. It was Anthony Mackie. And I was like, okay, all right. Why have we got Anthony Mackie here? Like, what's happening? But like, I liked him in this. He was, he had charisma. He's certainly got something, but I don't think he's the something that's going to lead this universe forward.
I mean, the conversation that he has about, following in Cap's footsteps could have been a conversation about him following in Chris Evans' footsteps, because Chris Evans is a fucking charm magnet. Like, the guy is just,
of course,
endlessly watchable no matter what he's in. And I'm not saying he's a better actor than Anthony Mackie. I don't know, but he's certainly more of a star.
Yes, I would 100% say that too. I think and the problem with this version of Captain America is he got beaten up by Ant-Man in one of those films, so I could never look at him the same
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Like, talk about beating down your best character.
It's going to be hard. I also don't understand the story purpose behind Red Hulk. Like, why did they do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. It felt like they were just trying to clear up some loose ends from, when was the Incredible Hulk out? 2007? Something like that? 6? 8?
Yeah, it would have been 2006 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, so it just felt like they were trying to clear up those loose ends. Because, look, Marvel fans, people who've liked these movies for a long time, there's a lot of loose ends. And I feel like the last two phases have been the phases of trying new things and clearing up loose ends. There's no, middle ground. There's no good progression. Like, Doctor Strange's movie was dire. The Thor movie was awful. There's nothing that's bringing those characters forward in a way that's satisfying, and they're just throwing out stuff like the Eternals, which was garbage. And I was really excited for that film when it came out, and I was gutted it was crap. But it just doesn't feel like it feels super stagnant. Like, why wrap up these loose ends? Who was asking to see where the lead is at now? Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was always that kind of hint that something would happen there, and it does make sense that he would be an antagonist towards the government as well, based on his history.
Absolutely.
And what happened to him and everything. But I think the more interesting part of this movie, the part that I really was like, oh, okay, I wonder what they're going to do with this, and they don't do anything with it because Red Hulk turns up, is that Celestial, I'm not giving anything away because it's in the trailer, that the Celestial that came out of the Earth, they're finally talking about it. And people are fighting over it in terms of its resources.
It's war games. It's great.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then they do that, and then they kind of tie it up, and it's like, oh, Captain America, he helped us, and it's all going to be okay now. And then that's the middle of the movie, and then Red Hulk. It just doesn't thematically. If they want to do like absolutely a war games, style picture, or 3 Days of the Condor or something like that. The way that Winter Soldier executed so successfully of being one of those sort of 1970s taut political thrillers. That was where they should have gone. Like, that's what I mean about what is the story versus Red Hulk, because it serves the character of General Ross, but it doesn't serve the story. And it's not like you're going to keep using General Ross because, I love the guy, but Harrison's
he's 80 years
nearly
old.
90. Yeah, no, he's nearly 90. Yeah. Like, it's not gonna continue. It's just it's a bit of a befuddlement. But having said that, like you said, I had a really good time with it. That dogfight sequence in particular is really well executed.
Right. I feel like we've been really negative on this. There's a lot to like about this film. Harrison Ford himself, fantastic in this movie. He actually really felt like he wasn't sleepwalking.
No, he's really there.
I was upset personally by the Giancarlo Esposito character. I felt he was ruefully underused. So apparently that character was added in reshoots, which kind of makes sense. Like, I get it. But if you're just chucking in a character who's so disposable and so nothing, and with lacking any charisma, why use Giancarlo Esposito, who is the most charismatic person on screen at the moment? I'm like, give him stuff to do. And there's a scene where he's in like a fist fight effectively with Captain America, and you're like, dude's like 10, 15 years younger than you. There's no like what, like, I get it. He's supposed to have, the backing of this incredibly intelligent other person who's telling him what to do, but one hit, the guy's down. You know what I mean?
But that's the fight that you should have. That should be the big fight.
Right.
You should be like, okay, so he's older, but he should be tactically more aware, and he should be a better tactician and a better military man than Cap is. And Cap should also lose his, like, at the end of the Hulk fight, not to give too much away, but his armor and stuff is fucked up, and stuff. That should be the fight, is where he loses all that stuff and still has to try and win. And that's not a fight you have with the Hulk, because one punch and you fucking mince, mate. You fucking jelly.
Right.
But with Giancarlo, it would be actually, a young buck who's kind of a little bit too cocky because he's had a lot of opportunity, and an old grizzled mercenary who is just going to go for the kill. Like, that's interesting to me, That's
a good movie. I don't know why. I mean, that could have been originally planned.
Yeah.
I did like the Isaiah Bradley character in this. Like, it does cover a lot of the same ground as that Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show. But his performance, Carl Lumley, man, what a performance. The guy's awesome. It's a shame it was sort of a rehash and he wasn't given something more to do.
Yeah. And it's Manchurian Candidate. That's the sort of brainwashing thing. And it absolutely works, but it would have been nice to not have him locked in a jail for the rest of it. Like, why can't he be on the run with Cap?
Anything different to that. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of get why they did that, but at the same time, it didn't need to happen. It was like, get Captain America to be on the run with, like a bad guy, someone who's been chased by the police. But then again, are we getting more derivative? Are we going back to storylines they've already done? I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Are they running out of ideas? Is that what we're seeing here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe it's not ideas. I think it's just like they're so manacled to this aesthetic.
Yeah.
That they kind of like. If you think about the first few films, in the series, they were kind of different things. They were trying stuff like Ant-Man is a heist picture, and Guardians is a space opera, and all that stuff. And now it's like they're so married to the course, stay the course, because people expect that now. Like, they're not gonna. They need to kind of turn around, and maybe that's what they're doing.
What we're talking about.
Maybe that's why Fantastic Four is a
60s
is set at a different time, so that they can do that.
I don't know how much of that's going to actually be set in the 60s. I think it's going to start there, or it's going to have like flashbacks to there. But I reckon it's going to be. Do you reckon that could be in a different universe, and they'll end up coming into the main universe? Like, thinking realistically about it, like, if they've been there the whole time since the 60s, why haven't they been involved?
That's absolutely the case, and this movie signifies it like you wouldn't believe. And we'll talk about it in spoilers, but yeah, that's absolutely what's going to happen. Yeah,
interesting.
You can't have an Galactus-like event in a universe and not have people talk about it. It'd be like if no 100%. One talks about 9/11.
100%. I hate that that's become a meme these days, but I know exactly what you mean.
It's true.
I mean, there's not much else from my perspective to talk about in terms, before we get in spoilers. We sort of like we're tickling the corners of it at the moment. But there's one thing I did want to mention. The whole thing about Anthony Mackie's Captain America having not taken the superhero serum, whatever you call the super serum, whatever it's called, is again another really like key part of his motivations and his arc. I'm going to put in quotation marks, arc in this. I don't feel like any of the characters really have an arc outside of, General Ross, maybe. It's been done. Like, he got the shield at the end of Endgame, and he was proud to have that shield. And it was, Cap was like, "You, man, you're me without the super serum. Like, let's go. Like, you're the man for the job." And I just feel like this has followed this version of, Sam Wilson through all of the iterations of everything he's been in. This, self-doubt, this worry about, is he not good enough? And then is he too black to be Captain America? Or is it because he doesn't have the superhero serum? I'm like, dude, you got Cap's approval. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
Like, this is a manufactured problem.
Well, I mean, it has to be, because they have to. I don't necessarily think that this film is about race as much as The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was.
There's a fair bit in there.
Yeah. But I think it's more with Isaiah that kind of, the marginalized nature of people of color during wartime and how they were. He gave us a super soldier and they stuck him in prison. And it is about him, about Cap rising above race. And you said before he's kind of like the people's Cap. Well, that's got more to do with his humanity than it does his color.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think that's partly true. But yeah, I'm just a little bit more concerned with that part of him being not the super soldier. Like that to me is the more interesting part of it, and it is touched on really briefly. It's like, I didn't take the serum. The end of that conversation. He was like, well, hang on, that's really follow that line because there's some drama there and we need it.
Well, yeah, completely 100%. I'm ready to go into spoilers. There's one thing I wanted to call out before we do though.
Batman's in it. Batman's in it. It's amazing. Comes in at the end.
Batman.
And he fucking kicks the Hulk's ass. Oh, good hell. We're going to ruin it.
This comment would never make your podcast because you are endlessly positive. However, the Film Addicts podcast, go check them out.
Annoyingly so. Yeah.
Danny Ramirez's Joaquin Torres, I fucking hated it. All of it. Everything about that character. Way too positive. Just like it was like having like a boy Robin next to him who was just annoying.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude. And then he was the like he did everything that he was basically like a MacGuffin for everything that you didn't want to see Captain America doing. He could do the tech stuff. He could charm someone who needed to. I was like, you're so annoying. Just get off the screen.
It was the performance as well because it was a really, we've seen this guy before. There's that. Maybe that's on this page actually. Maybe it's not the performance, but he didn't thrill me in terms of he wasn't that charismatic. But it's also that they are laying some heavy pipe about him getting goosed at the end of this. You know what I mean? Of like, that's not
100%.
Yeah, he doesn't die, everybody, but it just, that's like,
does he?
You got to be careful.
For spoilers.
Maybe Batman kills him, but you know what I mean? No, he wouldn't do it. Batman doesn't kill. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Depends. Is it Zack Snyder's Batman? Because maybe he does.
Yeah, absolutely. With a fucking pistol, no less.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like he was... The whole setup for his character was like, I'm ready, Cap, I could do it. I'm like, well, you're going to end up fucking getting your shit shoved in later on.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And they're really, really, really pushing for this Young Avengers cast thing, which I assume he's going to be part of, probably one of the older Young Avengers. But at the same time,
he's just like 42 or something. What are you talking about?
I just don't care about it. Well, they're all older than they look. Haley Steinfeld's not that young at this point.
Should be 30.
By the time they get around to that Young Avengers film, they'll all be in their 40s, and it'll just be an Avengers film. Don't care for it. Never cared for it. Who's it for? Like, let's be honest. All right, let's talk tones and or themes. There's obviously a lot about identity, Cap, walking in the shoes of giants, political tensions. What do you think about tones and themes? Or
yeah, I think it's about definitely power more than anything. It's like who has it and who deserves it.
I got the power.
And is it the people with the power who are the ones making the decisions, or is it the people without it? Like the whole thing is about a Cap now doesn't have the super soldier serum,
right?
And yet not only is Ross POTUS, he's also the Red Hulk, and they're about to enter a fucking like a sea battle, like a sea war, with a bunch of other nations over these celestial elements. It is about the misuse and misallocation of power and what that actually means.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like it's almost like a mirror image of like the final fight of the film, isn't it? It's like this little nation versus this big nation, this little man versus this big Hulk. Yeah. It's interesting. I think it's a bit muddled in terms of its tone. Certainly, we talked about looking to invoke the love for those Winter Soldier films and getting it wrong. I mean, they didn't get it wrong, actually. Like I say, 2/3 of this was great, and then there's just a big red monster in it for some reason. There's just something that's wrong fundamentally with how this flows, and all the cuts and stuff they made. I don't know if something's missed out that was really pivotal, or they moved part of the script, part of the story around it. There's just something. There's just something.
It's clunky.
Do you want to give me your 3 best and 3 worst?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, it's McClunky.
It's Coley McClunky. And
Thaddeus Ross shot first. I'm calling it. He shot first.
Why is he hot?
Great question. I've never really understood that. It's to do with him getting hulkier
and getting in red, but it makes his skin able to burn things. It's just they don't really explain. It's just like, hey, this.
How did his pants stretch the way the Hulk's pants stretch if he didn't know he was going to Hulk out?
Yeah, or not burn
Just
off. And we
saying.
can see his big red dick everywhere.
You should see Hulk dong in this film, is all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
We have an ongoing joke on the Film Addicts podcast about Hulk's penis and
Right.
whether
That's
it's
good to know.
massive and red or that when he made himself
Like a dog? Like
no,
massive
sorry,
and red?
massive and green. Because
Oh, okay.
you know how when he made himself Smart Hulk
Yes.
in Endgame, and he's like, I've got the best of both worlds. I'm like, no, you don't, because you can't have sex with anyone ever again because you'll kill them.
That's true.
And then Addie's contention was no, he went to, a scientist, he went to Reed Richards or something in the interim and was like, hey man, I'm this huge green hulking creature and I've got this massive dong, I can't have sex. Can you give me a small, normal man's pink penis? So he's this huge green Hulk, but with just a normal dick. And that's, so I want to see the Hulk, the red Hulk dick, and see what's up there.
You want to see it.
Part
you
of the
this.
thesis that I'm writing, yeah. I mean, that's what I need.
That's the entire reason you're asking for this. That's absolutely fine. I totally understand.
It's the only reason I'm into comics.
Shaking my head. Well, you see Batman's dong in one of the comics. I don't know if you're aware of that. That's
man, was it a double page
a while
spread?
ago?
That guy's got to be hung like Farlap. Fucking hell!
Come on, give me your 3 best and 3 worst.
Yes, sir. The dogfight is a really good spectacle. It's just in the wrong place in the film. Are we spoilering?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet.
One of my best is a spoiler, so I'll come back to it. And my other best is Harrison Ford. He's just he. I don't know. I love his performance as an older man. I think he's really committed.
Imagine if the Red Hulk was the Red Hulk
Mm-hmm.
and just had Harrison Ford's dong. They just left it. They just got him naked doing the mocap, and they just left his dong as it was.
I don't think you have to be naked to do mocap. I think if someone's telling you that, they're Neil Gaiman. It's just not on.
There's problems in Hollywood. That's all I'm saying. There's problems in Hollywood.
Agreed.
My best, quite simply, the first 2/3 of the film. I really liked what they went for. We talked about the action for the most part being more acclimatized to having a dude being Captain America rather than a super soldier. That makes sense to me. And I like the idea of the main plot, like the sort of nations at war, the fact that the Japanese think the Americans are trying to dupe them. And if that's not an analogy for China, by the way, I don't know what is. They obviously couldn't say that because PC and obviously they need to sell to that market too. But
yeah, the market's huge over there.
Right.
Man.
But that idea of this espionage / we talked about war games style movie was great. They got that right. They just didn't stick the landing, which seems par for the course of these films at this point.
Ironic
what's
considering he flies around all the place.
True. But Joaquin Torres didn't land, just saying. What's your worst? Goose!
The editing is rough.
Right.
It's really slow. It's really clunky. I'm
McClunky.
It was, it's not a terrifically well executed picture in that respect. This Frankenstein stitching of all the scripts.
Frankenstein?
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Is it like Valentine's Frankenstein?
Yeah, it's where you celebrate each other's dead corpses reanimated.
Oh my God. Valentine. Wow.
It's very specific. Valentine. Just this weird hybrid of, all these different story threads and elements. Like you can tell that they weren't exactly sure how they wanted to do it. And I mean, God love them. You got to stop putting these things in front of test audience and just trust that people are going to come. Because it's starting to fuck things up. People are too opinionated, and all of the people who have massive opinions on these things have no cinematic language skills whatsoever. They don't understand how these things.
I can believe that.
Yeah,
I can believe that.
And my other worst is also a spoiler, so we have to wait.
Sure, I had the twist should have been saved for the end of the movie, the Red Hulk thing, or maybe not for the end of the movie, but saved for the movie. As in, if I hadn't have known the Red Hulk was going to appear in this, that would have been awesome. But they just had to put it in there because it made a trailer look good. Mine are probably more spoilery as well. I just think they dropped the ball, man. Like, this could have been something. But you can tell by how many reshoots, and you can tell by how many times they've chopped this up, they clearly just didn't have faith in it. Which leads me nicely into asking you, what do you think the current IMDb score is for this?
What's this out of again? Is it 10?
10 out of 10. It's something point something.
It'll be 4. 4.3.
Ooh, it's a 5.7. So it's like
okay. real middle ground.
Right down the middle, effectively. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like to say that I think like a 6 is probably average on IMDb, so it's probably slightly below average.
Okay.
What do you think the current Rotten Tomatoes percentage is?
50? 61.
It's 51. You were so close.
Oh, damn. 51.
You
That's
almost
not
had
good
it.
either, is it? It's like...
No, that's really not good, actually, for Rotten Tomatoes. And finally, the Letterboxd score. It's out of 5. Can you guess for me what the Letterboxd is? Which is all users. I fucking love Letterboxd. It's an absolute... It's a shit show, but it's great.
Yeah, it is troll city limits. It's ridiculous.
It's always 3.6, but it's never 3.6.
Yeah, no,
it
it's
is?
like 2.8 or something.
Oh, it's 2.7.
Yeah, there you go.
Love that for you. Now, okay, right. Now, so I've got a little sidebar for this, and I'm going to ask you to do a little game. I'm going to give you 3. Have I got 3? I think I have 3. I'm going to give you 3 reviews, and you've got to tell me which of them is not a Letterboxd review.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Are you doing, like, when you read it out, are you doing the grammar in which it was read out in? So, like, missing...
Oh, I can absolutely do that.
Yeah, like, do it the way that it was written, because that'll tell me a lot.
Okay.
Like, if there's punctuation missing and shit, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this first one has none, so...
Okay.
I feel for the VFX animators who had to spend 28 hours per day animating Harrison Ford's big red nipples. That's your first one?
Okay.
That's your first one? This one's a little bit longer, so you'll forgive me if I actually have to take breaths, because I don't know if there is any commas or full stops in this, but I'm going to have to anyway.
Come on, people.
Occasionally.
We all went to school.
Your second one is occasionally when I'm in. This is actually really, I like this one. Occasionally, but they're all actual reviews. You just have to guess which one isn't from Letterboxd.
Isn't.
Occasionally, when I'm in the neighborhood and having a slow morning, I'll stop by my ex-wife and her new husband's, actually says husband and's house, and knock on the door a few times. They almost never respond. Lazy fucks can't even get out of bed at 3 a.m. Last time I did it, I wasn't even able to knock before my father-in-law threw open the door and held a shotgun in my mouth and told me if I'd come within 100 meters of the house again, he would blow my brains out. I was pumping and crying and promised I never would. Anyway, I saw this movie after and Red Harrison Ford looked a bit like my wife's father-in-law. I see myself in Anthony Mackie and have begun to construct a device.
Wow.
What the fuck
That was a journey. That was a journey.
That was a lot.
Someone wishes he worked for the New Yorker.
Right. All right. This one is possibly my favorite.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for this?
Yep.
This reminds me of the first time I had sex. Messy, lackluster. I cried a little. Harrison Ford was there. And no one knew what the hell they were doing.
That's actually really excellent.
Can you guess me which one of them is not a Letterboxd score?
The first one.
Oh, it's a lie. They're all Letterboxd. So what can I do?
I mean,
what can I do?
So people are so quirky, aren't they? They're just
Savage.
So much fun. They should all have a
Savage,
podcast.
Some might say. Why don't they? Why don't they? I don't have to call them out then.
Exactly.
Let's do some sport. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I have to ask you first our rating system, which is, as always, the internet's binary. People either love this thing or don't love this thing. It's ones and zeros. So we just ask, is this better or worse than the most average movie of all time, which is Aquaman 2018, and why? And this is a tough one. Why? What and why?
I think it's right down the middle. I think it's about the same.
You've got to choose.
In terms of what I do? All right. I'd rather watch this again then. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, me too. I actually had fun with this. We've been a bit harsh on it, but I think that's just par for the course with these movies these days. It was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I would watch it again. I'm not going to run to watch it again, but like I think it's getting way more hate than it probably deserves for the amount of crap they've done to it. Like he was pretty good.
Yeah, agreed.
I guess though that you then fall into that, and this was I always call this out. I was like, I put out a video a while ago on YouTube, which was, why is the Marvels getting all this hate? Like, it's not that bad. Like, it's a bit of fun. And someone rightfully commented on that video and sort of said, yeah, but that's the problem. Like, it shouldn't be like the bare minimum just to get it out. Like, it should be something. Like, people put time and effort and sweat and blood into these things, and all you pump out is this schlock. Like, I get it. Like, it's not good enough, but it's still better than Aquaman 2018.
Just have some, be selective and have some taste about it. And if it means you have to wait for things to come out longer, just do it. People will be here when you get back. Like it's right. That's why Fantastic Four's taken so fucking long.
Hopefully,
guns like if Superman doesn't work, I mean, we've got other things prepped and going and everything like that. But it's like the trailer says this is the beginning.
Yeah.
and it could be something special. I don't know. I was talking about that on the last episode of We Hate Movies. That's not my show. That's the show that I like watching. The Film Addies podcast with Addy, we're talking about that trailer, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetics of that, but yeah, they.
I really like the look of Superman. I think it's my most excited for the year. You may or may not have heard.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm optimistic, and I'll see what happens.
Yeah. Just like Superman. Let's do some spoilers. Yeah. What is that spoiling this? They bring adamantium into the MCU. I was wondering if they were going to do maybe a little sneak at the end, because obviously the US government had some adamantium. They'd stolen it effectively in quotation marks from Japan. It's one of the convoluted plot lines in this. But I wondered if maybe in the background, while they had it, they may have been testing it out. Maybe you'd get a little Wolverine cameo. But
that's all I'm saying. I mean, they haven't introduced, really the idea of mutants yet and how that would work. And it also doesn't, in 2025, if Wolverine is charting his course, 200 years old or whatever, the timing still works out for that character. But if it's also, I like the idea of them, okay, they've just discovered adamantium, and when they do give it to Wolverine, he's 20 or something, and this is a young X-Men cast, because that's not what they've done before. They need to be like they did a series reboot years and years ago called the Ultimate Universe, and they redid Spider-Man and X-Men and all that stuff, and the X-Men Ultimates, they were all teenagers. That's interesting to me.
Even Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, he was an older man, but he was he was aged, like a teenager.
Well, I think I do think he's the odd one out from that group personally, and I know that's hard. I mean, like Xavier and Magneto, you probably need to have older characters, but as the odd one out, I do think he can be a little older than the rest of them. When they did Days of Future Past and that cast, I forgot what the first one, First Class, I think they called it.
First Class. Yeah.
That was what I hope they will do with the MCU version. So they'll have, unless they're bringing in a fully formed team who are just already ready to go, have younger versions of these characters and but Wolverine can be the older one because he is effectively immortal. I think it would have been nice to have seen a little hint to that, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, I think if they're going to do it, they're probably going to do it in the classical sense and have the cast it'd be Iceman, Beast before he turns blue, Cyclops, and Jean Grey, and the Angel, which is that first core cast. Wolverine didn't come in until years and years later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
wasn't he the Canadian one first?
He fought the Hulk first, actually.
Yes, that's right. He did.
He was developed by
at that.
Len Wein developed him because someone bet him that he couldn't create a Canadian superhero and make it last.
Wiener.
Yep. Not Wiener. Ween.
What? Mm-hmm.
Don't disrespect the Ween man. He did some beautiful comic books.
The Ween man.
Yep.
That sounds very much like
the Ween comma
the
calling
Sandman's
you man.
writer. What else is it spoiling this? Thaddeus Ross wants to bring the Avengers back. That was a bit on the nose for me. I was like, all right, cool. I guess it is the start of the new Avengers.
It's setting up Doomsday and the other one, Secret Wars. And
Tony Stark, not Tony Stark. What's his name? Robert Downey Jr. minor cameo. I wondered if they'd sneak something in, or even like a reference to him.
Knowing what they know now, yeah. Well, that was the thing as well. It's like, okay, full spoiler thing. One, this is my other worst. Just if Betty's going to be in it, she has a cameo then when she comes to the raft to see her dad, just put her in the fucking movie. She's a great actress. What's the thing? She was like when she was in Ad Astra for 2 seconds. Dumb.
Maybe I thought she retired from acting. I thought that's maybe it. Maybe she just doesn't want to do it. She's like, I'll do a brief cameo, but I'm not going to be in your fucking movie.
Maybe because people keep giving her brief cameos instead of fucking actual roles. But I think probably more likely is just we don't have space. We can't figure out how to put her in here. But the very simple and kind of lackluster teaser at the end of this is that Cap goes back to the raft to speak to I keep going to call him the leader. I know that he's the leader. It seems like Nelson's character,
Samuel Stones.
Yeah, and he says, "Bloody blah, multiverse. You think you're the only heroes?" kind of situation. Then when they get
is that what that meant? I didn't really get that. I thought that was a World War Hulk reference.
Nah, they're setting up. You think you're the only heroes, and there's more heroes, and when they get here, they're gonna take it from you or whatever. And it's going to be they're
going to fuck your wife. Yeah. They're coming for you.
They're going to fuck your wife is what he says, actually. And it's amazing.
That is exact words. The only F-bomb they managed to get into this movie. I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
we didn't really talk about the end fight scene. It's this like David and Goliath, Cap versus Hulk, almost like the Japan versus US conflict. And like we kind of talk, we you know what, we could so loosely talk about the final fight in this between Cap and Hulk because it's all in the fucking trailer.
Yeah.
Like he wins, Cap wins, like, and it's kind of nonsense. He uses the vibranium of the Black Panther suit thing to beat him, and the interesting. Oh, and then he talks him down. He's just like, "Come on, dude, you're better than this," you know, like he did in the TV show. And I was like, right, how is that thematically work for this character? Am I confused at this point? What's happening?
Well, it's, you know, he takes him to the cherry blossoms where he used to walk with his daughter, and he gets all sentimental. It's just the sun's
like
going down real soon thing.
I took him to the cherry blossoms,
and he was you know, touched and he was moved.
Wow.
Sorry,
I'm calling take him to the cherry blossoms a euphemism, and you're like, and he was touched.
Whatever,
like,
you fucking
wowza.
you wrote that line of dialogue, sir. I had nothing to do with it. It's sort of I all of a sudden he's got this sway over Ross. Like they've set up to be antagonistic the entire film, then all of a sudden he's sage to him. I'm not really sure how that works.
I don't know. The whole arc of that General President Ross character to me is, I don't know, it's muddled. Like at the beginning, like he has been changed. He's a changed man, effectively. You know, he wants to be president. He wants to rule for everyone. He wants to reside over the states for everyone. But it's the pills that are making him angry because they've got. So long story short, the leader is mind controlling a bunch of different characters in this. He controls Sam Wilson's good old buddy, Isaiah Bradley. He mind controls a bunch of different people. One of the people whose DNA he has, who he tries to use, is the president's. And he calls out that at some point the president, his heart was failing, so he got these pills off the leader who he was keeping against his will to effectively help him with his heart problems. They turn out they're gamma radiated, and they're turning him into the Hulk. So I think the idea is that he has changed, but it's the pills that are making him bad. Yeah. So what arc is that for that character? There isn't one. He just gets over it.
Yeah, he's just manipulated until he turns into the Red Hulk, and all of a sudden they can keep him in the raft, no problems at all. And then he gets
good again. It's like the movie. It's just a bit muddled, and there's definitely something lost in translation that would have really fucking helped this movie. Yeah, a lot.
Even though it was short, and it was one of the shortest MCU movies there is, it felt really. They needed to like streamline and make it a bit leaner and remove a few story elements and just focus on one of these things.
But I still kind of liked it. Is that annoying?
It's still good fun.
I don't know. I said at the beginning, I am completely torn on this. I'm conflicted. Regs, I'm conflicted.
It's like I said off mic. It's like having a wank. It feels good, but it's ultimately pointless. Especially if you're on your own.
What was that Ryan Reynolds line? It's what is it? Worrying's like a rocking chair. Gives you something to do, but doesn't get you very far.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The classic.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that's spoiling this? I don't know if there is. The
really.
US-Japanese war gets ended by Captain America. Just been awesome. Joaquin Torres gets shot out of the sky by a bomb that he misses. He basically gets goosed, like you say.
He gets goosed, yeah.
Which leaves Sam to go in on his own. But like, I tell you who we haven't talked about once is the new Black Widow character, who was in it for all of 35 seconds.
Mm. And she's...
I don't know what did she add?
She's a little person, isn't she?
She's very short. I don't know if she's a little person. She's very short.
Is that the PC term?
I have no idea. I'm trying my best to kill this before I say something that will get me cancelled. No, I don't know. I actually don't know. I can't tell if she actually is or if she was just a very short human being. But
it doesn't matter. I was just interested.
I do my best to not watch other people's reviews of things, especially if we're going to be talking about it, but I flicked onto one. There's a guy who just spews hate for pretty much anything. He's called The Critical Drinker. He's a Scottish guy. He's on YouTube. And
wow.
I just wanted... and the reason I watched his one video, it's only 8 minutes, but I watched it because I wanted to see if any of the hate is unfounded, and annoyingly, sometimes he makes very good points. But one of the points he made... Actually, there's two really funny points he made. One point was this Captain America is an amalgamation of better characters. It's an amalgamation of all the different powers of like Black Panther and Ant-Man and Falcon, and there was another one. I forgot which one it was. And I was like, the whole way through the thing, he was calling him Black Falcon and something. And I was like, it was perfect. It was very, very silly. But like that kind of is what this movie is. It's an amalgamation of better things that have kind of been thrust together, and maybe it doesn't quite work because of it. But the other point he made was, and he made it maybe slightly more misogynistically than I would, was that she is a very small human being. And when you see that, a very small human being running in and taking out a guy who's 6'4" with ease and, doing like a Hurricane Rana and throwing him to the floor, I'm like, would that really work? Like, I can't fully remember if the widows are supposed to be enhanced somehow, but I'm like, when I see someone who is that size, it's like when you watched wrestling. I used to watch wrestling. I used to watch WWE, and there's a guy called Rey Mysterio who was 5'9", which sounds a normal height to me, but when he's up against people who are 7 foot tall, you're like, he's never going to win it. And obviously they would always contrive a way, and it would be his heart that won the day,
or use a chair, you would watch or a guitar, or a ladder.
You'd watch it, and you'd be like, he would try one of these moves, and the big guy would just catch him and just slam him down. I'm like, that's what would happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really trip up too much on the logic part of it, because I don't know if you and this fucking...
You're watching a comic book movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you and this dimwit realize there's a guy who turns into a giant red monster in this film, so let's just not worry about logic at all. But it was more just, you're right, it's like, it's riffing, it's like when you go to the pub one night and you're like, oh, there's a cover band playing tonight, and you go in there and they try and play Satisfaction, and you're like, get fucked. That's not it. This is it's riffing on Cap, it's kind of riffing on the Iron Man Spider-Man relationship a little bit. It's riffing on Black Widow, on the Hulk, on the Avengers. Like, these are all cover songs of songs that have been better, and sometimes you hear a cover and you're like, holy shit. I mean, when Johnny Cash did Hurt, even Trent Reznor was like, I'm not doing that song anymore, But then sometimes someone tries to do, Shake It Off at karaoke, and you're like, absolutely not.
Well, I mean, why would you do Shake It Off? There's just absolutely no need. But I completely agree. It's a bad cover band's version of better things.
Yeah,
let's call it that.
Yeah, there we go.
Great.
We'll put a button on it.
Let's finish up with a little bit of trivia, true or false. Are you happy for that?
Absolutely. I wait.
Fabulous. Trivia true, trivia false, my guy. Harrison Ford replacing William Hurt, the late great William Hurt in this, as Thaddeus Ross. Of course, he's making his first appearance in the MCU, but however, this is the 5th time a role has been recast in the MCU. Is that true or is that false?
The 5th time? Fuck. It can't be 5. I can think of like 2. No, not 5.
You failed successfully. It is actually 6 if you include him. So you obviously had Don Cheadle as War Machine. Yep. You had Mark Ruffalo replacing Ed Norton. You had Zachary Levi, who was originally Fandral in the Thor movies, replaced by Josh Dallas. You had Ross, I'm going to butcher this, Markand, who replaced Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull. And then you had Cassie Lang, whose character was replaced by Emma Furman. So yeah, there's 6 of them.
There you go. Swish.
They do it subtly, except for the Don Cheadle one, where I think it was Avi Arad who was like, he's black, no one's going to tell the difference. Which is, very, very on tone for that fucking guy. Trivia false.
Making the toys.
This movie was originally called Captain America: New World Order. However, they changed the title because they believed it had potential links to anti-Semitism. Is that true or is that false?
I know they changed it. I don't know if that's the reason, but that sounds accurate.
There's probably a lot of different reasons. They didn't actually give a reason for why they changed it. There was never a statement released, but it does kind of sound anti-Semitic, doesn't it? Let's be perfectly honest with you.
So at least they didn't call it Captain America Fatherland, because the old Germans are going, that's a good one.
I like what they did there. Yeah. Hydra is effectively the Third Reich, so...
Well, that's interesting as well. What's the name of this sort of Hydralite that they're doing? Hey, that's funny. Hydralite's that drink you have. The Hydra...
This guy, but...
ish thing that Carl Esposito works for. Is it Serpent?
I didn't notice that, but I guess
they say it a couple of times. I think it's Serpent, which is funny because the original title of Captain America 3 before they changed it to Civil War and decided to bring in to do that story was Serpent Society.
Right. Isn't that the one where in the comics it turns out Captain America was Hydra all along?
Yeah, I thought so.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, back to what we were doing.
Okay, well, let's give you a trivia true or false. I think you're 2 for 2 there. Trivia true, trivia false. In the movie, There were originally plans for Sam to receive the super soldier serum to make him on par with the likes of his former friend, Steve Rogers, and obviously Bucky Barnes, who we didn't talk about, who's in this movie, by the way.
Yeah, another
very
spoiler.
briefly.
But for 2 seconds, and he's running for Congress. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Very strange. Making a big change from the mainstream comic universe. Is that true or is that false?
Nah, I think it's too important to the story for that to have been a device. Yeah. No.
It is false. There was actually talks from the showrunner Malcolm Spellman, I'll get his name right eventually, that there were plans for Sam to receive the powers which he has in some comics, which is so he could talk to birds.
Nope. We'll do perfectly fine without that. Just going back to the Bucky thing though, like he comes in and he's all dressed up and they're like, wow, future congressman
You're running
Bucky
for
Barnes.
senator.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That'd be like if Julian Assange became the mayor of New York. There's absolutely no way.
I wouldn't. Worse things have happened. Look at Trump.
Yeah. Hey, you're absolutely right. Oh, you mean Red Hulk?
He's done some terrible things. Yeah. Red Trump. Finally, then, trivia, true, trivia, false. We're not a political podcast over here, people. Trivia, true, trivia, false. This is the third Marvel movie to be released on Valentine's Day. Is that true or is that false?
Yeah, that sounds about right. The other ones was Deadpool. So
not Deadpool. I like where your head's at though. Try and give me a couple of others.
Deadpool was released on
Marvel
Valentine's
movies.
Day. Oh, it's a Marvel studio movie, proper Marvel one.
No. Yeah,
the first Deadpool movie was released on Valentine's Day. They even had billboards and stuff promoting it as a romantic comedy.
You're right. This trivia is wrong. I fucking love that. That's great. Let me just triple check that. Oh, it actually released on the 11th of February.
Okay. Maybe they were saying on time for Valentine's then.
I think that was the idea. So the other ones were released were Daredevil in 2003 and Madame Web in 2024.
Yeah, actually, I was remembering that I went to see it like a year ago, yesterday or whatever it was, a year ago the other day.
Did we do that together? I
Yeah.
think we did that in the pod together.
Nonsense.
How nice. Perfectly circular podcasting is exactly what I like. Guys, ultimately, this movie has got a lot of things that I liked about it. I'm going to put that out there. I enjoyed this movie a lot on first viewing. When thinking about it, there's a lot of derivative stuff in there. I think there's problems with pacing and plot and definitely the cutting of this poor movie. But
yeah,
it's fun. Like, I can't tell you not to go and see it. I had a good time with it. Like, there's problems like there are with a lot of films.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think
is that how you feel?
It's there's some sequences in there that are interesting to look at, and there's some themes in there that are interesting to think about. But yeah, just go in with an open mind and don't expect anything.
Yeah. And you know what it was? I think I went in this with absolutely zero expectations, and I think that's why I had a better time.
Yeah, that's absolutely the way to do it.
You know what I mean? I didn't have anything in my mind about this. I was like, I have no idea where this is going to go. This could be crap, could be awesome. And then it turned out to be pretty fun. So I was like, all right.
I think as far as this film goes, and most films that are coming out, especially things that are attached to franchises, is you need to remove your want. You got to stop wanting it to be something or not be something, like, and just accept what it is. Yeah. Like, surrender, idiot. Like, that's kind of my thesis.
Just give in to the nonsense.
Exactly. Learn about letting go.
Guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. We really do appreciate it. You can find us at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. I have started doing more social media stuff again. It takes a lot of time, so we are working on new ways to do that. We want you all to find our content and share it, so please do. If there's something you like, please pass it on. Please give the gift of Podcast Assemble, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's just via a link, whatever works for you. You do that. Big thanks to Matthew Bliss for editing and mastering this week's editode. That's a new word. Episode. If you'd like Matt to be part of our podcasting team, get in touch at business@mbpod.com or head to mbpod.com to find out more about his services. DL does this way better than I do. If you want to hear more of his work, check out Coffee with a Podcaster. Super wholesome content. Think pieces about the world of podcasting. He's everywhere. He does awesome stuff. Please go check him out. Guys, thank you all for sticking with it. We really appreciate you. We appreciate you, Regs, as always. Tally ho!